I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's December 23rd, 2025. The Maryland General Assembly met last Tuesday to elect a new speaker, but also overrode a number of vetoes the governor had made earlier this year after the legislative session ended. PJM, the regional electricity transmission operator, which includes Maryland, Virginia, and DC, held another capacity auction. And had it not been for a cap instituted as part of a settlement with state governors, the prices would have cleared higher, much higher, because structural issues remain. In Frederick County, the council takes a big vote today, December 23rd, on whether to approve an expanded area for data center building beyond the already allowed land owned by a former aluminum plant near Adamstown. Montgomery County Public Schools announced its new operating budget, but we are still stuck on the capital improvement plan, and in particular the effort in the Wootton High School community to jump the queue ahead of Damascus and Magruder High Schools. And more. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by UMBC's Political Science Program, where you'll learn to shape public policy, impact communities, and function at the center of modern society. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
You're still on to me when I'm alone, and then I start to feel it creeping up inside. I told myself that this was the last time. I think I'm losing my mind.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society functioning precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC-based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, Animal and Cosmic Love. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com.
Talking like an animal. You're so suffocating, let me go. Oh, wow. The way I'm wrapped around your fingers feels so criminal. I sense you clearing from a distance, it's disturbing. Oh, make me a target like an animal. You're so suffocating, let me go. Oh, wow.
The Maryland General Assembly met last Tuesday, December 16th, in a special session to elect a new speaker, Jocelyn Pena-Melnick from Prince George's County, and, as it is required during special sessions, considered Governor Westmore's vetoes of bills from the 2025 session earlier in the year. The General Assembly overrode 19 of the 29 vetoes in the one-day session. The big ones included setting up the Maryland Reparations Commission to study the impact of slavery and recommend reparations for the descendants of enslaved people. The Renew Act, which sets up a study of the cost of greenhouse gas emissions by fossil fuel companies. The Energy Resource Adequacy Act, which creates an energy planning office in state government. And the Data Center Impact Study, which Governor Moore provided money for days before the override occurred. There were others, including local food purchasing by school districts, cybersecurity work group for the healthcare industry, creating a social media resource guide aimed at youth, and an AI evidence clinic within the state's court system. That's a lot of coverage, and it takes off the table the overrides for the new 2026 session, which will start January 14th. There are a lot of big economy and fiscal questions looming, but one of the most immediate ones is how committee chairs and leadership positions will change as Speaker Pena-Melnick takes charge of the chamber. The Governor's Redistricting Commission, chaired by U.S. Senator Angela Alsobrooks is presenting potentially new maps, even as the Maryland Senate President, Bill Ferguson, remains critical of the approach. PJM is a 13-state regional power transmission operator, which includes Maryland, Virginia, and D.C., going all the way from New Jersey to Illinois and Michigan to North Carolina, and functions as a common electricity market. PJM manages the largest grid in the United States, and one of its jobs is to maintain the reliable supply of power within its territory. But at what price? PJM's area includes Virginia, particularly Loudoun County, which has the largest concentration of data centers in the world. The increase in demand for power from data centers is only projected to grow in the coming years, and has for a number of years already been driving up the cost of electricity across the grid. These rate increases show up in electric bills for consumers, and the trend line is fairly sharp upwards. Last week, PJM held another power auction, which showed that the increase would have been steeper had it not been for the auction price cap that was a result from the governors of key PJM states threatening legal action. Maryland Delegate Lorik Cherkudian follows the issue closely.
The idea behind the capacity auction is to make sure that we have enough energy online 3 years from now. You create some level of stability in the markets if you sort of say, okay, we know we're going to need you in 3 years. Here's how much we're going to pay for you to be there in 3 years, so we have enough what's called capacity on the market. It's a small piece of your bill. The rest of it is there's daily markets and day ahead markets and minute by minute markets of the actual electricity. But if you think about a generator, whether that's a nuclear plant, a gas fired power plant, a battery storage and solar plant, any of those generators, they're basically getting money now or getting commitments of money now to make sure they're there and available in 3 years. We're a little behind on the capacity auction, so it's less than 3 years right this second, but put that aside for now. When you have the capacity prices going up, you are going to see an impact on your bill in the supply charge section. And when you're talking about, the capacity market numbers going from like $27 a megawatt day to 50, you might not see as much of a jump on your bill. But when you're talking about them going from $30, $40 a megawatt day to $333, you are going to start to see that compiled with, the increase in distribution charges, which I think you and I have talked about in a separate podcast, and other things that are increasing bills right now.
This impact is coming in 2.5, 3 years.
You're seeing it now on the bills.
Oh, so it's like a prepayment before the investment is even made.
I guess you could think of it that way. In theory, a capacity market is supposed to send signals to investors, to generation companies. But here's the thing. New generation cannot respond to those price signals because PJM has a broken queue system, which means if you are solar and storage company and you want to build over here, and you go to PJM, they have to do some studies and tell you can come online. You can't just go build and get online. So fine, but they are just now, because this is so broken queue system, they are just today releasing permission to get online for projects that got in that queue in 2021. So projects that in 2021, when the capacity price was like in the low 30s, were like, yes, I'll take that. I want to get online, are just now coming out of the queue with an opportunity to get built. So what that means is if you're looking now and you're going, $333 a megawatt day, I can make my project pencil with that. Let me go build something. You got to wait for 5 years. So you can't get built. And I think this is a really important thing for people to understand, because if PJM would tell you, well, this is the market, this is how it works, the price has to go up to get more built. Fine, if you actually have a functioning system that lets people get online. But if you don't, what this market is doing is two things. One, it might keep generators who would otherwise retire online. So if you have a power plant, gas-fired power plant, coal-fired power plant, and you are going to retire this year because of economics, you get this additional money, you might stay online. PJM would say that's a good thing. But the bigger thing that it's doing is these power plants that were already penciling, that were already going to stay online, are just getting this huge wealth transfer from ratepayers who are struggling to pay their bills to these companies whose projects already penciled, were going to be online anyways, and now they just get way more money.
PJM is saying that they are short between 6,000 and 7,000 megawatts on a base of 135 or 1,000 megawatts or so. That's about 5%. If you have a 5% shortage, then the price increases approximately 5%. That's not the case, is it?
Well, we have a price cap. So last year, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania filed a complaint at FERC highlighting essentially what I've been saying, which is there's an artificial barrier to entry. And so the capacity auction is not accomplishing what a market should be accomplishing. And so it's unfair for ratepayers to have to pay. As a result, there was a settlement, and the settlement led to price caps, which is at $329 for last year and $333 or $36 for this year. So we hit the price cap. The negotiation allowed for an increase in the price cap. That's why you see a slight difference of like $4 or $5 from last year to this year. This auction would have cleared at $500 something if it hadn't been for the price cap.
So the price caps work
To protect ratepayers, yes. Normally, economists would be opposed to price caps because they would say, like, well, you're going to harm the market from being able to send the right signals. But again, because the signals are irrelevant in this particular market, because nothing can get online, yeah, you need the price caps to protect consumers. And
how long will price caps remain?
I think it just got extended, and I actually don't know the answer to that question. For years, I have been advocating with PJM that they should do what's called a transfer of interconnection rights. If you have a power plant that is closing, and a new power plant wants to replace it. So a coal plant is closing and a gas plant wants to go there, a coal plant is closing and battery storage wants to go there, whatever. It shouldn't, that new generation should not have to get in the back of the line and wait 5 years, because you already know that the transmission system at that location can handle this interconnection. And then we hit the crisis, and they finally file with FERC to say, like, okay, we want to change the rules. Here's the rules, transfer interconnection rights. This was maybe a year ago. But their filing was so poorly designed, it would have allowed for a company to sell its interconnection rights, right? So now you're selling the rights, but you could hold on to them indefinitely. So you just create more of a sort of market power sort of a thing, which doesn't help us get more power on the grid. So FERC comes back and says, like, we're open to this, but not in this indefinite, you can interconnect anytime you want. If we're doing this because of a resource adequacy challenge, then the transfer has to basically happen within a year. PJM takes their sweet time. I think they now have filed at FERC again. So it's one of these things where, like, if you actually believe this was a crisis, as opposed to if you're just pandering and, allowing your current stakeholders who are also market participants to drive the conversation, then 5 years ago when we started this conversation, you would have filed for interconnection rights. 2 years ago when it became clear load was growing, you would have filed it. And a year ago when you finally filed it, you would have gotten it right.
Utilities everywhere, including in the PJM territory, in Maryland, have a duty to serve. So they don't differentiate between who is. Are you thinking about changing that duty to serve?
If we pass a law, for example, that in order to interconnect in the state, a data center needs to bring at least 25% or 50% or whatever of its capacity, it would say that the utility doesn't have a duty to serve them unless they comply with this rule.
Can you do that, or FERC will move in and say you can't?
It's not clear right now. I mean, at this point, it's my understanding that we absolutely can.
Okay.
The Federal Department of Energy has essentially asked FERC to override our ability to control the interconnection of large load. We don't have a decision there yet. I'm keeping an eye on that.
Lori Cherkudian, thank you.
Thank you.
In Frederick County, the council takes a big vote today, December 23rd, looking to approve an expanded area for data center buildings beyond the already allowed land owned by a former aluminum plant near Adamstown in the county. Kai Hagen is a former county council member in Frederick who opposes the new zoning law that will allow it.
For years, we had Alcoa, a major multinational, multi-billion-dollar company with a large facility in the Adamstown area. the East Alco facility. Alcoa ran that for many years. Over the time that they were there, they purchased a couple thousand acres of farmland around them because it was cheap for them and they could, it was easier to own the land than to have neighbors. When they left the community for a number of different reasons, that was one big, huge set of properties that combined to be about 2,200 acres or something like that. The area often gets referred to as a brownfield, a previously developed area, but it's not. There's a small area at the core where the facility was that's a brownfield, a few hundred acres, depending on how you view it. All the rest of it is just prime farmland that they happen to own, but they own the whole thing. Over time, they had asked for their land to be rezoned, not just where the facility was, but all of their land. And it was, because back in those days, county commissioners just got a request to rezone land and they'd rezone it. That was just the way things were done at the time.
So what year are we talking?
In the late 90s and the beginning of the century, most of this is prime farmland. It's surrounded on three sides by a rural legacy area, which is a program worth the county and the state that was established in 1997 to identify and preserve large contiguous areas of really high quality, important farmland for the future. Permanently. It was like a donut hole almost in that rural legacy area. The county went through the Livable Frederick Master Plan. The zoning on the East Alco properties didn't change, although there was an effort during the Livable Frederick process to turn it to include language in it for a new town, thousands of homes. Now, data centers were becoming a bigger issue in the world, in the country, in our region. Loudoun County was the biggest center of data center development in the entire world, right across our border, right across the river. And eventually they wanted to start to come here. Quantum loophole, we're going to move in here and buy the whole 2,200 plus acres with data centers. They're saying, we're not just going to say they can go into general industrial land or light industrial land or whatever. We're going to create this overlay zone in which these data centers can go with these additional requirements or whatever. And that overlay zone essentially could be, for now, just the 2,200 plus acres of the former Alcoa properties known as East Alco. Could be that and a tiny little bit more of the general and light industrial zone land immediately around it. But the Planning Commission supported an overlay zone that only slightly exceeds the boundaries of the East Alco properties. Doesn't mean you can't expand it later, but a majority of the current council is supporting the most aggressively expansive version of the overlay zone, which would add 1,000 acres or more and most of which, 80-90% of which would be within the rural legacy area.
What are their stated reasons?
I mean, you hear them talk generally, depending on about things like, the benefit to the community. We're going to create a lot of short-term jobs with construction. We're going to have county revenue, which will be enhanced, that can help us with funding school construction, ag preservation in other parts of the county, et cetera.
So it's a case for development.
The kind of development where you do get some tax revenues, you get the initial development fees, then you get ongoing tax revenues.
From the county council's perspective, they want more.
Apparently they do.
Okay.
And they're even willing to go into a rural legacy area in order to do it against the objections of the Planning Commission, the Advisory Committee, the local residents, other residents, every environmental and smart growth community in the county, the County Planning Commission.
You said the majority of the council was decided to do that. What is the breakdown?
Well, I can't say they've decided to do that because they haven't taken a vote yet, but based on
When is
everything,
the vote?
Tuesday. Tomorrow, the day before Christmas Eve, all indicate that there are 5 of them that are leaning towards something that only needs 4 of them. And
Name names.
Council President Brad Young, Council Vice President Cavante Duckett, MC Keegan-Air, Renee Knapp, and Mason Carter, 4 Democrats and 1 Republican.
Who was outside them?
Steve McKay and Jerry Donald.
Frederick County Executive Jessica Fitzwater. Is it your expectation that she will sign?
Yes. trying to kind of ride the fence on this whole controversy. She realizes that it's a big deal. I don't think she's worried about it in the context of her election, and that's probably sound judgment because I don't think anybody's going to run against an incumbent running for re-election that's a credible, strong candidate that can put together the support and the endorsement. The county charter put in place an ability for the citizens to challenge legislation through referendum. There's only 59 days, I think, after legislation becomes formally put in place. Citizens can gather signatures, and if they get enough, they can put the matter on the ballot.
If there is a public ballot question like you described, could the county council add a counter ballot question that essentially negates the public one?
They could, but the campaign for the voters would be, it wouldn't negate it. It would be one or the other would win.
Kai Hagen, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Some other time we'll do it again.
It's in your nature, baby, should've known. I thought I loved you, but I didn't know how. Think you've been lying to me all this time. Thought I could catch you in the crowd.
Montgomery County Public Schools is the 14th largest school district in the United States. Size brings economies of scale, but also governance challenges. Typically, different school communities end up competing for resources, especially for new buildings and renovations. We've been reporting on the effort on the part of the Wootton High School community to jump the queue ahead of Damascus and Magruder High Schools for a new school building. For this episode, I spoke with Joanna Weisner about how Damascus High School is dealing with the competition.
So current status is the superintendent has Damascus High School in his recommended CIP budget for a rebuild, which means we're no longer getting renovated. They are planning to build a brand new Damascus High School at the same location on the same plot of land that the current Damascus High School is. The Board of Education approved the superintendent's recommendation, and so now it goes on to the county executive and the county council to approve the funding for the CIP budget. So that's where we're headed next.
CIP is usually in a sequence. The projects are, where is Damascus relative to the other big projects?
Damascus High School is the priority high school according to MCPS. So we are the first on the list as a high school to get our CIP major capital project completed as of right now.
Who are the other schools below you?
Magruder has been mentioned as needing a new build school, as well as Wootton.
How much money is involved? I mean, what are we talking about? Have they said?
The Damascus High School project is estimated for about $300 million, and Magruder and Wootton are on the heels of that. The reason the holding school has come up as a really appealing option is because it does provide those Magruder and Wootton projects to be expedited and allows the students to have a place to go during construction so that the construction at Damascus, Magruder, and Wootton could happen more seamlessly, and it would expedite those timelines needed. They're projecting $300 million in cost savings by using a holding school.
What is the timeline?
Damascus, as of right now, is slated to start construction in 2028 with a completion date of August 2031. And MCPS has said they can build a new school in 3 years.
Now, it's been reported that the Wootton community in particular is wanting to go ahead of Magruder and Damascus. They have been organizing. What is the tension here?
The fact that the budget is so thin and it's so hard to get that money and those timelines and those projects, parents feel like they have to fight tooth and nail to get included. You know, Damascus has certainly paid our dues. We've waited. We're ready for our new school. We need our new school. Wootton I don't know, why it's come up so recently that their school's in such bad shape coming from their community. I know, I've talked to teachers and, former employees that have worked at the Wootton school who are also familiar with Damascus, and they seem to say, yeah, Wootton's old, it needs to get fixed up, but Damascus is certainly in more need. So, that's all kind of the word on the street, and parents want what they can get for their own student.
That's the problem, right? So it pits community against each other. Are you thinking of some better way to do it? I mean, I understand you have some objective list, but in the end, can the decision not be a political one? I mean, and by that I mean that MCPS rewards the loudest community.
These $1 million decisions, hundreds of $1 million decisions, should not be based on parent outrage. They need to be based on who truly needs it and where does that money truly need to go.
Isn't the question then, who truly needs it means who's making the decision
Well,
to
and
determine that, right? I mean, and what standard are you choosing?
I do think MCPS is onto something with these FCI reports, these facility condition index reports, and having these visits to determine, okay, what are the building systems and ranking them. One of the things I know we encountered in Damascus is small projects that have been done along the way to very old school buildings meant that the FCI overall report score wasn't bad enough to be in the CIP. Damascus Elementary is a prime example. That school is 90 years old, and they put a new roof on it because the roof was leaking. Well, now that the school has a new roof, they no longer have deemed that as a priority school to be rebuilt. It's a 90-year-old school. It's got plumbing issues. It's got all kinds of issues. But the new roof meant no new school.
Are the current FCI numbers consistent with MCPS's list, which is Damascus, Magruder, Wootton?
The FCI number is a part of the equation. So it's not the only reason to choose a school. So the facility condition index, and then there's things like the fact that Clarksburg is overcrowded and Damascus High School is planned for an expansion to build a bigger school, increase student capacity by about 700 students, and that will alleviate overcrowding at Clarksburg. We're also alleviating some additional overcrowding at Gaithersburg by having more of the Laytonsville community come to Damascus High School. So it's the overall CIP equation involves the FCI score, but the FCI score is not the only determining factor.
Right. Then obviously these other factors that you're now adding on makes the decision more political than objective as you want.
Sure, but these decisions aren't black and white. There's going to be variables that need to play into the decision-making process. And so, is parent advocacy always going to be a part of the school system? Probably. But we also need to strive for a more equitable and data-driven approach.
What is striking about what you told me just now is that if you defer maintenance, then your chances of getting a new school building increases.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, there's some incentive to defer maintenance.
Yeah. And shout out to the Damascus Building Services teams because they have done a fabulous job keeping those old school buildings looking pretty good, really. And that's one of the questions that I've brought up with some of these other schools too. Strong leadership, strong building services, pride in your school and community. That goes a long way for making your school look good and last a long time. So some of these schools that are not looking so great, that have ceiling tiles missing, that had water leaks and they never replaced the ceiling tiles, My question is why? Why didn't you replace those ceiling tiles? Why haven't you maintained your building to look better? Are you trying to portray something so that you can, kind of point to, hey, we need it more?
Tell me how you've organized in the Damascus High School cluster community to make sure that you remain number one on the list.
Yeah, well, we're really developing those relationships with the MCPS staff, both at our schools and at home office. And we're trying to connect with the county council representatives and the community politicians that also have a hand in this decision. We're going to the meetings, we're showing up, we're testifying. We've got a Facebook page, we've got an Instagram account. We are providing our schools regular updates about what's going on with the CIP, with the boundary study, and really trying to push a lot of communication out to our parents and families, especially at the middle school and elementary school level, because let's face it, those are the families that are going to be impacted by these decisions.
The question is, do you have t-shirts?
Not yet. Not yet, but we will.
Joanna Weisner, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I don't care if silence playing games today, but it ain't fair. The thought of you takes me away. Now I need air. Yeah, I think I got lost in my head again. Baby girl.
That's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that comes out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, with support from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities of Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC-based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, Animal and Cosmic Love. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you will subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.
Can't read the signs, it feels like perfect timing. Got this love is shining. Pardon me, it feels like we can use a little TLC.